the new student. The sun rose over the small town of San Luis Potosí, casting a warm glow on the dusty streets and red-tiled roofs. It was another day in the 1990s, and life continued as usual in this rural Mexican barrio. The air was filled with the aroma of fresh tortillas and the chatter of neighbors exchanging greetings as they went about their daily routine. Mario, a 12-year-old boy, stepped off the bus that had brought him from his small village to Escuela Primaria Benito Juárez in San Luis Potosí. He adjusted his backpack and took a deep breath, feeling both excitement and nervousness as he entered the school for the first time. The children playing outside stopped their games momentarily to watch the newcomer, but soon resumed their fun once they saw that Mario was just another student like them. The bell rang, signaling the start of the school day. Students rushed into classrooms, greeting friends and taking their seats as teachers prepared for lessons on mathematics, history, and Spanish grammar. In one classroom, Juan, a local boy who had grown up in San Luis Potosí, sat next to Pedro, eagerly awaiting the day's first bell. Juan was an average student with an above-average sense of humor that kept him popular among his peers. He loved playing soccer and spending time with his friends after school. As he listened to Señor Ida Martinez explain the day's lesson, Juan couldn't help but notice a new face in the classroom, Mario, who had just arrived from a small village to attend Escuela Primaria Benito Juárez. Mario blended seamlessly into his surroundings, wearing clothes similar to those of his classmates and speaking Spanish fluently despite being an outsider. He took notes diligently during lessons and participated in discussions with ease, earning the respect of both teachers and students alike. Throughout the day, Mario went about his routine like any other student at Escuela Primaria Benito Juárez, attending classes, eating lunch in the cafeteria, and playing soccer during recess. He quickly became a familiar face around the school, greeting students with a warm smile and joining them for games of tag and even a basketball match after class. As the sun began to set over San Luis Potosí, Mario made his way home on the bus that would take him back to his small village. The day had been long but enjoyable, filled with new experiences and friendships formed within its walls. Little did anyone know that his arrival marks the beginning of a sequence of events that would change the town forever. Juan, who had been sitting next to Mario since the first day of school, couldn't help but notice that his new classmate seemed to have some unusual habits. For one thing, he always wore a strange-looking pendant hanging on his neck during school, which he would occasionally hold up and glance on during the middle of lessons. Another oddity was how quickly and effortlessly Mario could run around the playground as if he had superhuman speed. Despite these peculiarities, Juan found himself drawn to Mario's friendly demeanor and sense of humor. They began spending more time together outside of school, playing soccer during recess or sharing a laugh over lunch in the cafeteria. It wasn't long before they became inseparable friends. One day after class, as they were walking home together, Juan decided to ask Mario about his mysterious device. "Hey, what's that thing you always carry around your neck?" he asked casually. Trying not to sound too curious, Mario looked surprised for a moment before replying with a smile. "Oh, it's just something I use to help me study better." He patted the device affectionately as if it were a beloved pet. "Milagros?" Juan asked. "You could say that," Mario replied. Juan nodded skeptically but didn't press further. Instead, he changed the subject and asked Mario about his village back home. Mario said his family is living far away, and he was sent here to town to study. Mario told him stories of wide open fields filled with wildflowers and enchanted tall trees that seemed to touch the sky. He spoke fondly of his family, especially his younger sister back home, Ari, who loved playing hide and seek in their enchanted garden. As they continued walking, Juan couldn't help but feel a pang of envy for Mario's idyllic life described to him in such flowery language. But he also felt grateful to have found such an interesting friend right here in San Luis Potosí. No one expected that things were about to take an unexpected turn. One day as the sun was setting, Mario and Juan was walking home from school chatting about their favorite soccer teams, video games, and the latest action movies, when suddenly they heard a loud roar behind them. They turned around to see Arnold, the biggest bully in their class, charging towards them. He had a menacing grin on his face. "Hey geeks," Arnold sneered as he approached. "Why don't you two bookworms be good little sheep and pay tribute to the real wolf that rules this school?" Juan felt his heart race with fear. He had always been afraid of Arnold, who was known for picking fights with smaller kids. But Mario seemed unfazed by the threat. He looked at Juan reassuringly before turning his attention back to Arnold. "We're just trying to get home," Mario replied calmly. "Is there something you need?" Arnold laughed cruelly. "Oh, I think there is," he said, taking a step forward. Maybe if you two can do me a favor, then I'll leave you alone for now. Juan gulped nervously as Arnold reveals a little brass knuckle he always carried around to intimidate smaller kids but never had to use. The tax collector has come, and the bill is due. Give me your lunch money, Arnold demanded, shoving his brass-knuckled fists in their faces. And don't say you already spent it all or I'll make you wish you were never born. Mario interrupted Arnold's threats by revealing the strange-looking pendant that had been concealed under his shirt the whole time. Do you know what this is? He asked as soon as it caught Arnold's attention. This, he said slowly, is not from this world. Arnold scoffed. What are you talking about? It's clearly made by humans. My abuela is the town brujeria, and all I can say is that your protection charms won't help you because charms are all fake. Arnold belittled the boy. No, Mario corrected him, his voice growing more intense with each word. This is no mere charm. This was created by beings far beyond your comprehension. Beings who have traveled across the stars to observe and learn from humans. Arnold stared at Mario in disbelief. He was unsure if Mario was lying or if there is truth to his words, but now all he knew was he wanted that unusual-looking pendant thing for himself. Without warning, he lunged forward, grabbing for the mysterious device that hung around Mario's neck on a silver chain. But before he could even touch it, something strange happened. A bright light suddenly enveloped them both, and when it faded away, Arnold was nowhere to be seen. Juan looked around in confusion but saw no sign of his former tormentor. All that remained was the faint smell of ozone lingering in the air. What just happened? Juan asked, his voice trembling with fear. Do not worry about that boy, he is now where he belongs. What are you? Asked Juan, who was still in disbelief. Mario didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared down at the device clutched tightly in his hand, its glowing lights flickering softly like a living thing. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he looked up at Juan and spoke. I am from another world. Juan was momentarily stunned at the revelation. He considered Mario was joking, but what that just had happened with Arnold, he cannot ignore the possibility that Mario is telling the truth. Juan, Mario began hesitantly, I need you to promise me something. Juan looked back at him, confusion etched on his face. What is it? He asked cautiously. Mario took a deep breath before continuing. My life, my world isn't like yours. I come from another place, a place far away from here, Mario explained softly, his voice barely audible above the rustling leaves around them. Mario could see the shock and fear in Juan's eyes, but he pressed on. This isn't something I can make you forget about or ask you to ignore, Mario explained urgently. I kept my identity not just to protect myself but also to protect others. If people find out what I really am, they won't understand. They might try to capture me or hurt me or worse, and they will also go after you. Juan looked at him for a long moment before nodding slowly. He knew that this revelation was already the beginning of the end of their friendship. But he also understood how important it was for Mario's secret to be kept. Despite being an alien, he had felt a certain kinship with Mario, a true friendship at one point. I promise, Juan said quietly, his voice filled with determination. Whatever happens, I won't tell anyone about your world or who you really are. Mario breathed a sigh of relief as he looked into Juan's eyes. Juan knew that keeping the secret would be difficult, maybe even impossible at times, but he knew that he gave his word. And even as a 12-year-old child, Juan was already a man of his word. The days that followed were filled with a strange sense of unease and awkwardness. Juan found himself avoiding Mario whenever he could, as if their friendship had become tainted by the revelation about his true identity. At times, he tried to convince himself that the revelation was a hallucination, maybe even some kind of elaborate practical joke played on him by his mischievous friend. But deep down, he knew better. He saw too much. Mario's behavior also changed dramatically towards Juan after that fateful day of revelation. He became distant and withdrawn, rarely speaking unless spoken to. When they did interact, it was always brief and awkward, as if they were two strangers sharing a common space rather than best friends who had once been inseparable. As weeks turned into months, Juan found himself drifting further away from Mario. Their once inseparable bond seemed to be slipping through his fingers like the inevitable fate of sand trapped inside an hourglass. Despite what he had learned about Mario, he sometimes missed their friendship. He thought of reaching out several times. Maybe send a letter or make a phone call. He even considered showing up at Mario's house unannounced. But each time he was about to take the first step, reason takes over and reminds him of who Mario truly was. Eventually, Juan gave up hope that things could ever go back to normal between them. Instead, he threw himself into his studies and extracurricular activities, determined not to let a single friendship define who he was or what he could achieve in life. One day, without even the courtesy of a good premonition, Mario stopped going to school altogether. That day, he simply didn't show up for class, leaving everyone wondering where their enigmatic classmate had disappeared to. Except for Juan, who knew his true nature, no one else seemed concerned because in Escuela Primaria Benito Juárez, it is not uncommon for students suddenly to drop out in the middle of the school year. Juan even passed by his house one day, but his house was empty. He was truly gone. It was as if Mario had vanished into thin air, taking with him the last remnants of their shared past. As days turned into weeks and then months, Juan found himself reflecting on everything that had happened between them. He wondered what could have driven his friend away, whether it was fear or guilt or something else entirely. Perhaps he returned to the stars where he belonged. But no matter how hard he tried to make sense of it all, there were simply too many unanswered questions left hanging in the air like ghostly echoes from a distant past. And so life went on without Mario. The town continued its daily routine as if nothing had changed. But for Juan, things would never be the same again. He carried with him the weight of their shared secret, a burden that weighed heavily upon his heart and cast a shadow over everything he did from then on. Months had passed since Mario vanished without a trace, leaving behind only whispers and rumors about his whereabouts. Juan tried to move on with his life, focusing on schoolwork and extracurricular activities that kept him busy during the day. But at night, when darkness cloaked the world in its cold embrace, he found himself lying awake in bed, haunted by memories of their shared past, memories that seemed to grow more vivid and terrifying with each passing day. One evening, as Juan was flipping through the radio stations while doing his homework, a chilling broadcast caught his attention. The announcer's voice trembled with fear as he reported on an unimaginable tragedy. A nearby barrio had vanished without a trace, buildings crumbled into dust, streets were swallowed by the earth, and families who once called that place home were now all missing, presumed dead, or simply mysteriously vanished. The radio continued that this tragedy was too bizarre because not a single person, dead, injured, or alive, could be found. Juan's heart raced as he listened to the horrifying details of the incident. He couldn't shake off a feeling of dread creeping up on him like tendrils of smoke in the darkest corner of his mind. It was then that it hit him. Mario. Could this be somehow connected to his mysterious friend? As days turned into weeks, Juan found himself consumed by guilt and fear. He knew deep down that he should have acted sooner when he had the chance, if only he hadn't been so blinded by friendship. Maybe things wouldn't have taken such a terrible turn. But now it was too late. Mario was long gone, leaving behind nothing but a lingering suspicion and unanswered questions. And yet, despite everything that had happened, Juan couldn't bring himself to tell anyone about his suspicions. He kept the burden of the secret all to himself even to this day, fearing what others might think or say if they ever found out the truth. Instead, he chose silence because he cannot do anything about it anymore. He could not undo the tragedy, and he knew full well no one will believe him anyway. And he feared what they would do to him if they found out what he knew and kept secret all this time. And so in the end, because he had no other choice, and the time for speaking had passed, he was forced to honor his horrific promise and to keep Mario's sinister secret for all the days of his life.
Don't approach the child if contact occurs. Repeat, do not engage. He doesn't know what he is. The barrier wasn't removed, it was folded. Spatial crease may be temporal, still collapsing inward, nothing to recover. We tracked residuals to the river warehouse, but subject J12 failed to arrive. Passive monitoring continues.
Let him grieve. He'll come back when it's time.